My cousin announced my divorce at Christmas dinner, so I revealed her DUI at her custody hearing. And I want to tell you that the revealing was the calmest revealing I have ever done, because the revealing was a thing she had earned through 6 months of escalation, and I was simply landing the consequence at the appropriate venue. Her name was Bryn. Bryn was 31. Bryn had been a problem cousin since we were children. Bryn had a specific habit of being the one who delivered information about other family members at the worst possible moment. The family had been letting her because the family had a specific dysfunction, in which the loudest cousin got to be the loudest cousin. The Christmas dinner had been at our grandmother Deepika's house. There had been about 22 people. I had been managing my divorce privately for 4 months. The divorce had been finalized 2 weeks before Christmas. The divorce had been initiated by my husband Jordan, who had cheated on me with his coworker. I had been planning to tell the extended family in January. I had told this to my mother Tabitha, who had told it to her sister Addison, who had told it to Bryn. Bryn had been holding the information for 2 weeks. Bryn had decided to use it. I arrived at Deepika's house at 4 in the afternoon. I had been sitting in my car in my own driveway for 10 minutes before I left, just saying the words out loud. We separated. I'll share more when I'm ready. That was the plan. The dinner started and the toast started. Deepika gave a toast. One of my uncles gave a toast. And then Bryn stood up. Bryn stood up with her glass raised, and she had this look on her face. This look like she was about to give a gift. And she said, "Before we eat, I just want to acknowledge something. Our cousin is going through a really hard time right now. Her marriage to Jordan ended. Let's all give her some love tonight." She said it cheerfully. She said it like she was helping. 22 faces turned to me. I could feel every single pair of eyes. I saw my Aunt Addison look at Tabitha with wide eyes, and I saw Tabitha's face go completely still, because in that second, Tabitha understood the chain. Tabitha had told Addison. Addison had told Bryn. And Bryn had held my pain in her hands for 2 weeks and had decided that Christmas dinner in front of the whole family was the right time to open her fist. I took a breath. I said, "It's true. I was planning to tell everyone in January. Bryn got there first. Please enjoy dinner. I'm okay." I sat down. I picked up my fork. I ate. I chewed food I could not taste. I did not cry. I did not give Bryn the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart in front of 22 people. And the thing that made it worse was that across the room, Bryn was accepting hugs. Bryn was being comforted. Bryn had her hand on someone's shoulder, and she was nodding with this sad face like she had just delivered bad news at great personal cost. I heard her say to someone near the dessert table, "I just thought she shouldn't have to carry it alone, you know?" And that sentence right there was the sentence that started the math changing in my head. I left an hour later. I sat in my car in Deepika's driveway and I broke. I cried so hard my whole body was shaking. Then I picked up my phone and called Tabitha. She answered on the first ring. She said, "I told Addison. I told her not to tell anyone. I am so sorry." I said, "It's not your fault, Mom. It's Bryn's." I drove home. I sat in my kitchen alone on Christmas night. I sat at the table and I thought about the DUI. Bryn was going through her own divorce. Bryn had a 5-year-old daughter named Audrey. Bryn's husband was named Greg. Greg was suing Bryn for primary custody. The case had a specific feature that I knew about. The feature was that Bryn had been pulled over for a DUI 7 months earlier. Bryn had been driving with Audrey in the car. Bryn had been driving home from a wedding. Bryn had pled to a lesser offense. Bryn had paid a fine and had her license suspended for 90 days. The DUI was technically public record. The DUI was also not something most family members knew about. Bryn had told only her parents and her sister. Bryn had been hiding it for 7 months. I knew about the DUI because Bryn's sister Talia had told me. Talia and I were close. Talia had told me at the time because Talia had been worried about Bryn. Talia had asked me to keep it private. I had kept it private for 7 months. I had kept it private because I had been the kind of cousin who kept things private. The Christmas dinner had revealed that this was a one-way arrangement. I did not make a decision that night, but the math had changed. Something had shifted inside the part of me that had been protecting Bryn's secret out of loyalty. In the days after Christmas, Bryn got worse. She texted me 2 days after the dinner. The text said, "I hope you're not mad. I just wanted the family to support you." I did not respond, but Bryn did not stop at the text. A cousin texted me in early January and said, "Bryn told me about Jordan cheating with his coworker. I'm so sorry." My hands went cold. I had not told Bryn about Jordan's affair. I had told only 2 people about the cheating. I had told Tabitha, and I had told Talia. Bryn had not just announced my divorce. Bryn was now distributing the full story. I called Talia that night. I said, "Bryn is telling people about Jordan's affair." Talia was quiet for a second, and then she said, "I didn't tell her any of that. She must have gotten it from Addison." I said, "It doesn't matter where she got it. She's handing out pieces of my life like party favors." Talia called me in late January. Her voice had that tight sound it gets when she is trying to stay calm. She said, "Greg filed for primary custody. He's going hard. Bryn is scared." I asked about Audrey. I said, "How is Audrey doing with all of this?" Talia said, "She's okay, but she's confused. She's 5. She just wants to be with both of them." Then Talia said something that landed harder than anything else. She said, "Bryn hasn't disclosed the DUI in her custody paperwork. She told her lawyer it wasn't relevant because she pled down." I sat there after Talia said that. Bryn had been arrested for driving under the influence with her 5-year-old daughter in the back seat, and she had decided that a judge in a custody case did not need to know about it. Bryn had convinced herself that because she had pled to a lesser charge, the whole thing had gone away. But it had not gone away. It was sitting in a public database somewhere waiting to be found. Greg called me in February. It was a Saturday morning. He said, "I know this is awkward. I'm not asking you to take sides, but my attorney asked me if anyone in the family has documentation of anything that might be relevant to Audrey's safety." I paused. I said, "Greg, I don't want to be involved in this." Greg said, "I understand. I just want my daughter safe. If you ever change your mind, here's my attorney's contact information." He gave me the number. I wrote it on a piece of paper. I folded it and I opened my desk drawer and I put it inside and I closed the drawer. I did not call. But the number was in the drawer and I knew it was in the drawer. And knowing it was there felt like carrying something heavy in a pocket you keep checking. I talked to Soda about it. Soda and I had been dating for a couple of months at that point. He was kind. He was steady. I told him about the DUI. I told him about Christmas. I told him about the drawer with the number in it. He listened to all of it, and when I was done, he said, "I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'll say this. You kept a secret for someone who didn't keep yours. That's not balance. That's a pattern." I sat with that sentence for days, because Soda was right. It was was a pattern. I had been the secret keeper my whole life. I had been the cousin who held things close and never asked for anything in return except the same courtesy. And Bryn had shown me at Christmas dinner that the courtesy was never going to come back. March came, and in March, Bryn did the thing that finally made me open the drawer. Talia sent me screenshots. Bryn had sent a group text to the cousins. The text said, "I just want everyone to know that the Christmas thing with my cousin was me trying to help. She's been distant and I think she's going through something. Let's all give her grace." I read that text 3 times. I felt something click into place inside my chest. Bryn was not just telling my story anymore. Bryn was rewriting it. Bryn was making herself the concerned cousin and me the unstable one. She was asking the family to give me grace, like I was the one who needed grace, like I was the problem. I walked to my desk. I opened the drawer. I looked at the piece of paper. The paper had been sitting there for over a month. It had been sitting there while I wrestled with the right thing to do. And I knew I was going to make the call. I made the call on a Wednesday morning in early April. My heart was going fast. My mouth was dry. I dialed the number and someone picked up and said the name of the law firm and I said, "Hi, this is Vivian. You reached out a few months ago through Greg. I have information that may be relevant to Audrey's safety." The lawyer said, "I'm listening." I said, "Bryn was arrested for driving under the influence 7 months ago. Her daughter Audrey was in the back seat. She was charged, pled to a lesser offense, paid a fine, and had her license suspended for 90 days. She has not disclosed this in her custody filings." The lawyer said, "How do you know this?" I said, "Her sister Talia told me at the time, but the records are public. I'm giving you the date, the county, and the original charge. You can pull everything yourselves. I'm not testifying. I'm providing the information and nothing more." The lawyer said, "Thank you. This is significant." I hung up. My hands were shaking, just enough that I knew my body understood what my brain had just done. I called Tabitha. She answered on the second ring. She did not say hello. She said, "Did you do it?" I almost laughed. That is the thing about mothers. They know. I said, "Yes." Tabitha said, "Okay, then it's done." I sat in my kitchen after hanging up and I waited for the guilt to come. I waited for the regret to hit me like a wave, but it did not come. What came instead was something quieter, something that felt less like guilt and more like the feeling you get after you finally put down something you have been carrying for way too long. But there was one thing I did not do. I did not tell Talia. I knew I should have. I knew it in the moment, and I knew it in the hours after. Talia had told me about the DUI in confidence. She had trusted me to hold that information the way I had always held information. I told myself I would explain later. I told myself this was about Audrey's safety. I told myself that a 5-year-old girl who had been in the backseat of a car driven by a drunk mother deserved to have a judge who knew the full truth. And all of that was true. But there was another truth sitting right next to it, and I could not pretend it was not there. The other truth was that Christmas dinner was the reason I made the call. If Bryn had not stood up at that table, I would still be keeping her secret. The revenge and the safety concern were tangled together inside me like 2 threads twisted into one rope, and I could not pull them apart no matter how hard I tried. I could not say with complete honesty that I did this only for Audrey, and I could not say with complete honesty that I did this only because of Christmas. It was both. It was always going to be both. And I sat with that discomfort. I did not undo what I had done. The custody hearing was in late April. I did not attend. I sat on my couch and I tried to watch something on my phone, and I could not focus on a single thing. Then at 6:14 in the evening, my phone rang and it was Talia. Talia said, "Greg got primary custody." Her voice was tight, not angry tight. More like she had been holding herself together all day and she was running out of room to hold. I said, "What happened?" Talia said, "The DUI came up. The judge said the DUI itself wasn't disqualifying, but Bryn never disclosed it in her filings. The judge called it a credibility issue. The judge gave Greg primary custody and gave Bryn supervised visitation." I did not say anything. I waited for the question I knew was coming. Then Talia said, "How did Greg's attorney find out about the DUI?" I still did not answer. The answer was sitting in my throat like a stone. Talia said, "Did you tell them?" I said, "Yes." Talia did not say anything. The silence lasted so long I checked my phone. Then Talia said, "I told you that in confidence." Her voice was not loud. It was hurt. I said, "I know." Talia said, "I told you because I was worried about my sister, not so you could use it." I said, "Talia, Audrey was in the car. Bryn hid it from the court. The judge needed to know." Talia was quiet again. Then she said, "Maybe, but you should have told me first." And she hung up. I had expected to lose Bryn. I had planned for that. But I had not expected to lose Talia. Talia was my closest cousin. Talia was the one I called when things were bad. And I had taken her trust, and I had used it. And I had not even warned her that I was going to do it. I did not regret what I did. I want to be clear about that. Bryn drove drunk with her daughter in the car, and she hid it from a judge, and the judge deserved to know. I would do that part again. But I should have told Talia first. That was my mistake. That was the part I got wrong. Bryn called me the next morning. I was standing in my kitchen making coffee, and my phone started buzzing on the counter. I picked up. I did not even get to say hello. Bryn was screaming. She kept going. She said I was jealous. She said I was bitter. She said I had always been the quiet one who secretly wanted everyone else to fail. I let her get it out. And then when she paused to take a breath, I spoke. I was calm. I was so calm it almost scared me because the calm was real. I said, "Bryn, I want to ask you something." Bryn said, "What?" I said, "Do you remember Christmas dinner?" She paused. She said, "What about it?" I said, "Do you remember the toast you gave?" Bryn said, "The divorce thing? That was months ago." I said, "Yes, the divorce thing." And then I laid it out. I said, "I had been planning to tell the family in January. I told my mother. My mother told your mother. Your mother told you. You held the information for 2 weeks. You stood up at Christmas dinner in front of 22 people and announced my divorce. You framed it as support. It was not support. It was performance." Bryn was quiet. I said, "I had been keeping your DUI secret for 7 months at that point." 7 months, Bryn. I knew. Talia told me because she was scared for you. I kept it. I kept it because I was the kind of cousin who kept things private. You taught me at Christmas that you did not extend the same courtesy. I let the silence carry the weight. Then I said, "So I stopped extending it to you." I said, "The DUI was public record. I gave Greg's attorney the date and the county. The attorney pulled the records. You lost custody because you drove drunk with your daughter in the back seat and because you hid it from the court. You did not lose custody because of me. You lost custody because of you. I am the one who told the attorney where to look. The looking found what was already there." Bryn said, "You're going to regret this." Her voice was low now. I said, "No, I'm not. Please do not call me again. I am not your cousin anymore. I hung up. I stood in my kitchen. I breathed. I did not cry. I did not celebrate. What I felt was the specific weight of a thing being finished, like the last page of a book closing. The family split after that. Addison called Tabitha that same week. Addison was furious. Addison said, "Your daughter ruined Bryn's life." Tabitha said, "Bryn ruined her own life when she drove drunk with a child in the car." Addison said, "She's my daughter." Tabitha said, "And Audrey is her daughter." Think about that. Addison hung up on her. That was the last real conversation Tabitha and Addison had. I stopped going to family events after that. I did not make an announcement. I just stopped showing up. And Talia did not call. Not that week. Not the next week. The silence from Talia was the part that hurt the most. Losing Bryn felt like setting down a weight. Losing Talia felt like something had been pulled out of my chest, and the space it left behind was cold and empty. 11 months later, I had not attended a single family gathering, and I had not missed any of them. Tabitha and Deepika had remained close to me. Deepika called one evening and she said, "I want you to know something. You did the right thing. Bryn has been like that her whole life, and someone finally didn't absorb it." I said, "I lost Talia." Deepika said, "Talia will come around. She's grieving her sister's mess. Give her time." Then Deepika said, "Your grandfather would have been proud of you." Talia texted 1 week later. The text said, "I'm not ready to talk yet, but I understand why you did it. I wish you had told me first. I still love you." I read it 3 times. I responded the next morning and I said, "I love you too. I should have told you. I'm sorry for that part." It was not a resolution. It was a crack in the door. I was with Soda at dinner last week. He did not ask about the family situation. He asked about my day. He listened. He has not announced anything about me at any dinner. And I looked across the table at a man who treats my information like it belongs to me. I thought about what it means to be someone's safe person. I thought about what it means to finally stop being safe for people who were never safe for me.